If you keep your money in a bank account, listen up. Your savings could be at risk. The banking system is once again under extreme stress. Car loans are defaulting, credit card debt is ballooning, and commercial real estate is on the brink of collapse. These aren't just red flags, they are sounds of a financial ticking time bomb. But there is a safe and easy way to protect your financial future. Gold. Gold is historically safe from economic policies that jeopardize your wealth. Gold allows you to lock in today's value in the face of tomorrow's uncertainty. Don't wait for the next headline crash or bank run to act. Inaction could be catastrophic. Contact Noble Gold Investments today and safeguard your tomorrow. As a bonus, they'll give you a free quarter-ounce gold standard coin as a thank you for opening a qualified account. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com to claim your gold coin. noblegoldinvestments.com. Hey, Inspired Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers. John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in to another Inspired live stream. It is Monday, March 4th, 2024. I can't believe we're into the third month of the year, and it's been such an eventful year. We're healthy, we're wealthy, we're whole, we're free. That's the mantra of the Inspired live stream. And it's, you know, sometimes we add, we're winning. I like that. I think it's a good addition to the mantra. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in on YouTube, on Rumble, on X. I think it's an important message today. I think we're turning the page and becoming clearer on the countdown that we're all in, the countdown to 2030. Christine and I were traveling last week, and it was a very warm day. So we spent some time on the beach sitting and just watching the water. And one thing became abundantly clear to me. We have a lot of work to do, but there are a few fundamental things that we need to preserve or bring back by 2030. And if we don't, I also think that we will suffer the consequences, and the world at large will suffer the consequences. And I want to start with a clip that I want to share with you by the president of El Salvador. He spoke at CPAC in February, just outside of Washington. You know, the conservative PAC event, and it's always a great, great to observe what people are saying. But I've never really heard presidents of other nations talk so candidly about the situation. And there are a few nuggets in this clip that I want you to hear and pay attention to. And then we're going to go into the countdown. I'm going to tell you exactly what I believe we need to preserve and what we need to prevent from happening until 2030 to really give freedom a fighting chance. Okay, so let's go into this clip here together.
When I talk to my conservative friends right here, they always tell me that the problem is high taxes, that they're wrong. Of course, high taxes are extremely high here in the United States. I give you that. But that's not the real problem. The real problem is not the high taxes themselves, but the fact that they are not even really funding the government. So who's financing the government? Government is financed by treasury bonds, paper. And who buys the treasury bonds? Mostly the Fed. And how does the Fed buy them? By printing money. But what backing does the Fed have for that money being printed? The treasury bonds themselves. So basically, you finance the government by printing money out of thin air. Someone could ask, well, so if the government can print the limited amounts of money out of thin air, why do they collect taxes? The answer is simple, but it's very shocking. The real problem is that you pay high taxes only to uphold the illusion that you are funding the government, which you are not. The government is funded by money printing, paper backed with paper, a bubble that will inevitably burst. The situation is even worse than it seems, because if most Americans and the rest of the world were to become aware of this farce, confidence in your currency would be lost. The dollar will fall, and the Western civilization with it. If the next president of the United States doesn't make the necessary policies and structural changes, sooner or later that bubble will burst. Winning the election isn't enough to solve these problems. They will not simply go away as a consequence of an electoral result. It would take a total re-engineering of the government, top to bottom.
There are many great nuggets in this that need to be unpacked, many great truths in this that thankfully are making their way into basically the political mainstream, which is so important because, believe it or not, a lot of politicians, a lot of decision makers, as flawed as they might be in other ways, they had no idea how the money system works. I tested this theory oftentimes, and I was shocked at the ignorance and the stupidity, frankly. This guy is not stupid, but he's saying something very significant. The government / the system needs to be restructured top to bottom, but actually it's coming from the bottom up, if you will, in terms of grassroots. Okay, so he's fundamentally saying that we're in a bubble, which is completely true, and that bubble will burst. I am saying it has already burst, but it's kept on life support until they pull the plug, right? There's this unbelievable fairy tale in the United States that we're having the greatest economy here, and that inflation is down to 3%. And I mean, there's just and unemployment. There's just it's like, it's not even that you beautify the numbers, that you fix them. It's just completely invented. There's no such thing. There's no great economy. There's no great market. There's horrible inflation. Okay, so let's just stick to the truth. But we have to dig deeper. There's a lot of things that we need to do as a society that we love to talk about, the solutions, the growing of food, the self-sufficiency, the building of communities. All of that is incredibly important and serves the purpose of getting to the point that we need to by 2030, the absolute latest. And why 2030? Because the dark forces, if you will, the psychopaths, the cabal, that's where their end date is for fully implementing a few things that they need, no matter what, to bring on their dystopian one world order wet dream. Okay, so I want to show you this graphic here and talk about it as we go through it. So the path to freedom 2030. These are, for me, the absolutely most important things that we need to preserve in order to make it and leave a better world behind, right? Preservation of biology. This one is a big one for me. Preservation of biology means many things. It is, on the one hand, if you look into agriculture, moving away from genetic engineering, moving away from this artificial foods, moving away from all of this. But of course, on the human side, it means that we need to 100% preserve human biology and not let ourselves be seduced into merging with AI, artificial technology, becoming hybrids, going into the transhumanist thing. So preserving human or biology in general is 100% one of the most important things, right? And we're going to get into what we need to prevent too. Free speech. Free speech has been under attack for a very long time, and it's never been a fully realized concept to begin with. But the way it's been in the last years, it's absolutely crazy because the censorship has been codified and has been put into law. You see the European Union doing that. You've seen this in New Zealand, in Australia. You've seen this in Canada. You've seen to a certain extent it in the United States, where even if there is no applicable law, it's just being handled this way. So the preservation and expansion of free speech. I don't care if you don't like what I say. I don't like what you say, possibly, but, and I will use this famous quote, I might not agree with you. I might even oppose what you say, but I will die fighting for your right to say it. And this is what we need to preserve. It's not about getting on the same page. I don't give a shit about hate speech or what they consider hate speech. I think free speech zones are the most stupid and idiotic thing that exists. It has created a generation of college kids that can't deal with anything. What is a free speech zone when supposedly you have a document that enshrines your right to free speech? Does free speech mean you don't have any consequences from speech? Of course, that doesn't mean that. Everything is consequences. But the way that it's handled now, it's not well, you say this and this might have certain consequences. No, you're not allowed to say it. We're going to prevent you from saying it. We're going to prevent other people from hearing what you say. So this is preemptive free speech control. This is the Minority Report, the Tom Cruise movie, where they have the technology to see that a crime might be committed, or there's planning, and they're putting people away for thinking about it. Okay, so free speech, 100% highly important. Free movement. We've seen what happened in the COVID era. We've seen digital health passports. We've seen basically the new yellow bands and the star. Right, people were marked. When you had the mark, you could go certain places. When you didn't have the mark, you couldn't go. Right, and in certain places, this meant for people that tried to prevent them from going and getting basic necessities like food, water, and whatnot. Which is why we always tell you the system is not on your side, and you can't rely on it for your most basic needs. Okay, so free movement is extremely important. We can't there can be no negotiation on this. Free movement, free internet. We have already seen the calls for a digital ID, a biometric ID to access the internet. But we're also seeing sort of the subtle prevention from again, censorship or prevention from free information by government agencies colluding with social media companies. Because who are the social media companies inherently funded by? Who were they started? What capital were they started with? Well, go to Intel Q, go to the CIA front companies, and you'll see who funded so much of what you see on the internet today. So free internet. Once you start locking it, once you start requiring digital IDs and biometric, there's no more free internet. And even now, the way it stands, everything you do can be tracked unless you protect yourself to the best of your abilities, right? But this is an essential, this is an extension of free speech, is free internet. And then last but not least, cash, the preservation of cash. Our monetary system is horrible. The bubble's going to burst. But when we replace it, which we need to replace a debt-based system that prints money out of thin air, that completely gives the money lenders, gives the bank people all the advantages, because they can literally print money out of thin air, and they can book it as an asset and a liability. Well, you try to do that in your accounting and watch what happens when you book one thing as an asset and a liability. Good luck with that. And they're fooling the whole world by doing that. But we still have coins and paper, as flawed as it is, and I can still go out and use that paper and buy something from my neighbor 3 doors down, and it is, in theory, an anonymous transaction. Because guess what? It's none of your freaking business what I do with my money. It's not anyone's business what I do with my money. It shouldn't be anyone's business. I totally disagree for multiple reasons with sanctioned theft / taxation. It's completely it shouldn't happen, and it's not necessary. And as you have heard, President of El Salvador, I would say he should know something about government funding. I mean, he depends on it. It's where his salary comes from, right? He should know that taxes don't fund the government. Printing money, borrowing money, that's what funds the government. We're just the collateral. Our work, our taxation is a collateral, and it helps to pay down some of the interest. Never the principal, just the interest. So, okay, cash. The preservation of cash means that we retain a portion of freedom. These things are by no means a complete list of things that we need to accomplish by 2030. But if we don't accomplish these things here that are on this list, the rest, you don't even have to start thinking about it. It won't be possible. What does that mean? And what do we need to prevent? The first thing that needs to happen is heavy restrictions on AI. I'll be realistic enough for now that I don't think that absent of a complete spiritual awakening by the masses to the max, we will not see AI go away anytime soon. Whether that's on my wish list or not, I just don't see it happening. But we need to put heavy restrictions in place on AI, on its what it is or isn't allowed to be a part of a decision making. And when it comes to preservation of biology, at least the least that we should do is ban AI from entering the brain. I mean, this is the least we could do in order to have a fighting chance. Okay, so this is heavy restrictions, and that needs to be discussed, of course. No social credit score. We can't allow for what has been proposed and what's already in place in places like China, a social credit score that gives you your behavior, your compliance, your proper thinking and acting. Of course, the properness is provided by the government. The government dictates what is proper, what is right, what is truthful information, what isn't, all of that. And they give you a score. And just like your credit score, when you try to, get a loan or a credit card or buy a car and have car payments or a mortgage, well, you look up your credit score, and depending on how well you did with your finances, according to the parameters they said, you are creditworthy or not. But this is different. This means a social credit score literally means, hey, we saw that you posted something that was critical of the government, the president, the Speaker of the House, the governor. Here's your warning. We're going to take 10 points off your score. If you do it again, you'll have travel restrictions in place, or we'll put transaction restrictions on you, right? Because in a digital world, you can do that. Social credit score it's the end. It's complete end. Because the social credit score, the way that it's working in China, for example, it of course only works when everything is digital. That's why we need to prevent certain things, right? Social credit score can never happen. Never, ever can the government be the deciding factor on what kind of speech or actions go. Of course, within one maxim, as long as your speech and actions don't hurt anyone or their property, and that's a given, right? When you really become a real criminal and you hurt others and their property, sure, then you need to be, society needs to protect itself from you. But a social credit score can never happen if this is implemented, and to a certain extent, the soft version is being tested in countries and in places, and people now, it's different. Like in Italy, they have these pilot programs where they're not taking things off your score, but they're giving you certain benefits if you behave in better ways. Don't use your car, ride the bus. If you do that, we're going to give you some points here, and that's going to give you some benefits, right? Well, that's just the soft implementation, right? That's how they always do it. That's like free charging stations for electric vehicles. Well, they're starting to go away in many places. Of course, they're going to start charging. That's just to get you in the game. Same with the social credit thing. They're going to tell you, hey, if you do these things, and if you do that, and if you don't do that and do this, you're going to get points. We're going to give you points, benefit points. And with these points, you're going to get discounts for this service or that service, or you can do this for free. That's the government for you, No digital health passports, my friend. This is what free movement means. No digital health passports. Under no circumstances, there's no soft version. There's no, but we're only going to take these inoculations that should be required for you to do general travel. I want to go from the United States and visit my friends in Canada. I will not discuss my complete health history, my blood pressure, and whatnot with some Border Patrol agent. I shouldn't. That's just wrong on so many levels. The way travel works, by the way, and international travel, it's wrong in many ways. But a digital health passport, which the proposal in all nations means you will have to keep up with the program, with the medical program that we put in place, which means bi-yearly physicals or twice a year, which means here's a list of all inoculations you need. If you don't have them, you can't travel. This is what this really means. Well, there could be other medical procedures that they think they deem necessary. Oh, well, are you already hooked up to a Neuralink? Because we're starting to require it. Because you see, you look like a nice guy, but we really want to first measure your brain activity before you come into the country and see whether you have some aggressive potential up there or you having some dissident thoughts up there. You think that's crazy? This is exactly where this is going. No censorship. So with censorship, I've seen this, and I see this mostly I see this in places like in countries in Europe where, yeah, you should be able to say what you think, but with the exception of this and that and that and that and that. No. No censorship means no censorship. You are a man or a woman on earth, just like everybody else. You say what you want to say. If there's going to be fallout, if people hate what you say, if people think it's stupid, well, they're going to let you know, and there's going to be fallout. Okay, but no censorship means no censorship. It shouldn't be in media, shouldn't be in the government, shouldn't be in the classroom. It shouldn't be anywhere. We have to deal with things as adults. And absolutely 100% no CBDC, no central bank digital currency. With a central bank digital currency, with a health passport, a digital health passport, and with a social credit score, you have the perfect trifecta of tyranny. So these things we need to prevent under all circumstances from happening until 2030. This is the current countdown. 2,128 days, 13 hours, a few less minutes when I did this. And we're gonna work on this countdown clock. Because here's what I'm thinking. What I'm thinking is if we don't get a grip on this situation in the next months and years, well, let's stick to months, it's going to get harder and harder and harder and harder to do. However, we are getting a grip on it. And that's why you see this exponential use of very weird tactics, more violence, more threats of war, nuclear tests. And by the language, we know what they're up to. So they are getting afraid. And they are understanding that we know what needs to be done. But I wanted to make it clear that as we're talking about spiritual connection, as we're talking about inner solutions, as we're talking about trauma healing, as we're talking about growing your own food and living in a self-sustainable way and being able to actually own land, not rent it from the government. If we don't prevent these things from being put into law, we don't even have to talk about the other things anymore. That's game over. Because coming back from these things being fully implemented, there's only one way to come back from it. There's only one way to come back from it. Nobody wants to hear what that way is. You can imagine what it is, but there's only one way. And so if your local representative, if your sheriff, or wherever you are in your nation, if your mayor, if your city council, if your state government, if your legislature, if your prime minister or president, if your parliament are soft or compromising on these issues, they need to be gone. There can be no room for negotiation on these issues. There can be no, listen, like a few people have said, when they didn't know they were on a hidden camera, we're not going to program CBDCs. It's going to be anonymous. But the whole point according to all governments, of having CBDCs is to do what? Is to prevent crime, corruption, money laundering. So if you want to prevent these things, how are you going to do it if you keep it anonymous? You can't. So it's never going to be anonymous. Of course not. But it's not only not going to be anonymous. Now, if you have $100 in your pocket, if you have $100 in your pocket and you go out and you want to buy something, well, you go out and buy it. As long as there's somebody willing to sell you something, well, you're going to do that. But with CBDCs, those $100 won't be $100 that you can spend on whatever. CBDCs are programmable. It means that, you get your basic universal income of $2,000 a month, but here's the things that you can use it for and how much you can use for what. Oh, you can only use $50 a month on fuel. I'm sorry, but we don't allow more for gasoline, and your money's going to be programmed in a way that only allows you to spend $50 on gasoline. Oh, you wanted to buy a ticket to see your grandmother? We're sorry, but you've just seen her 3 months ago. You fulfilled your quota. You won't be able to do air travel until next year because your programmable central bank digital money won't buy you that ticket. That's the whole point of it. It has nothing to do with corruption, nothing to do with the mafia, because guess what? The mafia is still going to exist. No measure so far has prevented organized crime to exist. What they do is eliminate the competition, eliminate the ability of everyday people to compete in the market. That's what it does. Has the war on drugs worked ever? Sure, if you know what the war on drugs is about, then it works perfectly fine. It continues to provide ample opportunity for the government to expand programs. It continues to provide ample opportunity for certain agencies to make a lot of money off of it, but it sure as hell hasn't protected anyone or anything from dying or taking less drugs or whatever. So we are not in a free nation. Why can I say this? Because no matter where I would be right now in the world, that would be a true statement. But we have certain protections in place right now that are still keeping us in a somewhat free state that will allow us to better the situation, make it better, improve it. If these things are implemented, no chance. Go and study a place where these things are already in place. I think China is a good example. They're probably not all the way there, but they're pretty much. And of course, what is the role model for the World Economic Forum, for the UN, and for the EU, and for Canada? The role model is China. These leaders of these nations and unions have said this over and over on camera. They said, well, I mean, we really envy China. We envy Xi Jinping. We envy the CCP. It's so easy for them. It's a great system. They say this is what we're going to do, and they do it because there's no opposition. There are no guns. There are no arms. They disarmed the population. I mean, the thing why I didn't put the right to keep and bear arms on here, because there's America. There's Switzerland in certain, there's a few nations in the world that still have it, but that's it. The others have been disarmed already. So that option doesn't even apply to you anymore. And this is, to me, just to be clear, I am not an anti-government person at all. I'm not an anti-system person whatsoever. I think a system is great. I think a truly free and transparent system where the system serves the people and is made of the people, right? Made up of the people. Wonderful, necessary. Every indigenous tribe shows that. Everything has a system. I'm not anti that. But there is a small, a tiny, a minuscule, but very, very emboldened group of entities that are using this system on your back and my back and the backs of everybody else. That's what they're doing. There are wonderful people in the government. I've met many of them. They're intelligent. They feel like you and I do, and they're trying their best to turn things around where they are. This is not a us versus the government fight. This is a fight, if you will, and a movement for freedom. And when you are in a movement for freedom, you need to identify what actually constitutes freedom and what constitutes the opposite of freedom, which is something like tyranny or enslavement, if you will. And so this is where we are. And that clarity will help us. So at the very minimum, the things that I talked about today on this countdown to 2030, we need to keep, expand, and on the other side, prevent from happening, right? There is no wiggle room on this. On CBDC, social credit score, digital health passports, at the very minimum, there's no wiggle room on this. And this is probably where the rubber meets the road. And these are the discussions that need to be had, as I said, around the dinner table. Most people don't even know this is here. You ask people what's CBDC, ask them on the street. What's a social credit score? They might know a little bit about digital health passports, but they think, oh, that's gone away. We solved that problem. COVID's over. So what? Climate change will require a digital health passport. As a matter of fact, everything will. A perpetual crisis requires all these things. I am dreamy enough. I am inspired enough to believe that we can turn the ship around. I'm inspired enough, more than enough, to know that if we get on the same page on these things, it doesn't matter if you are liberal, conservative, libertarian, if you're in no box, right? If you're a Christian, if you're a Hindu, if you're a Buddhist, I don't care. If we can decide on a few basic principles that constitute freedom within our shared living spaces, then we have a fighting chance. And that's the countdown we're in. And we don't have those full 2,128 days. That's just the last line in the sand. Come January 1st, 2030, if we haven't accomplished the essential portion of this list, it's going to be a whole different price to pay. I don't want to go there. I don't want to get there. I see it in certain places already, and I simply don't want that. Again, I think we owe it to the people that came before us, and we owe it to the people that come after us. Give everybody a fighting chance. So let's do this together, and let's talk about this. We'll talk more about it, but talk about it with your family and friends. Bring these topics up. CBDC, social credit score, digital health passports, at the very minimum. And ask them, do you want that? Tell them what that means. Programmable money. And let me ask you one thing. When in the history of mankind, as far as you can tell, has the reigning power not used all the tools at their disposal that they had at their disposal? Because people say, well, that's only if a government were bad, then they could do that. When has a reigning power ever not used every tool in the toolbox to control people? I'll wait if you show me that reigning power that was, oh, we could do this and that and that. That's well within our authority. But we're not going to do it because we're so good. I'm sorry, but it hasn't happened. And until good, spiritual and spiritually connected, well-balanced and whole people, healed people are in positions of leadership, it won't happen. So it's going to have to be us. All right, my friends, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being with us again. We love you. We appreciate you. Oh, wait, I forgot one thing. One of the greatest support systems in the world today that sort of runs in the background and helps us work through all of these challenges is a service called FLFE. Go check it out. The link's in the video description. We've been on it since August of last year. by far one of the most wonderful supporting systems. It's a high consciousness field. It's a spiritual quantum technology, if you haven't heard about it. And you can go check it out. Links in the description. Give it a try. 2 weeks. No credit card needed. No strings attached. Just give it a try. And watch what happens. More energy, better sleep, easier conflict resolution, more creativity. I could go on and on and on about the benefits, but I really want you to experience it. This will help us greatly. And the beautiful thing is the founders are on the same page, on our side. And this is how they want, and this is how they were tasked to support mankind in this day and age. All right, my friends, much love, many blessings. We'll be back with you again tomorrow.